we've talked about like what maybe we shouldn't be hyper focused on. What can the Flyers take away from these two teams that have now reached the Stanley Cup final? Like, to me, when you talked about, I think last week, the hyper aggressiveness of Bill Zito.
Yes.
Like, man, you know, you can make mistakes, but the best way to remedy mistakes is be like, well, how can I fix this? And how can I fix it now? Like that Jonathan Huberdeau contract, you know what we can do? Fucking get Matt Tkachuk. Like, we can keep rolling over these issues. Like, I'm very interested to see what you have to say about what the Flyers can take away. For me, it's aggression.
I would agree with that. I think Florida is the more interesting case study, because to me, the big takeaway that you can gather from the Oilers is, I mean, it's an important one. Just keep trying.
Yeah.
That you've got your guys and you know they're real good. Don't listen to the outside noise that says, well, you know, maybe you can't win with two really good players. Maybe you need to trade Draisaitl for something else. Like,
for two guys who aren't as good as him.
Don't listen to those people. You have your really good players. Stick with them, and eventually you will be rewarded. That you don't need to listen to the people, the idiots, the idiot columnists who are saying, well, McDavid isn't playoff material. He doesn't play well enough on defense. You'll never win a cup with him. Ignore those idiots.
One of 6 guys with 2 30-point postseasons already.
Yes. Ignore those idiots and trust that your high-end superstars will ultimately get you to where you want to go. So I think that is it's a very easy lesson to learn. The Flyers are not at a point where they have to worry about that. No. But hey, if Matvei Michkov is awesome, but he's 25 years old and the Flyers haven't gotten past the second round yet, that will be a lesson to take. Where if Michkov every year is scoring 100 points, but you have people in this market saying you'll never win with him. He's small. He's a winger. He doesn't play defense. You got to trade him. Ignore those idiots and keep sticking with the really, really good player who scores 100 points every year. Eventually, you will be rewarded. That, to me, is the primary takeaway from the Oilers. The Panthers are a lot more interesting because you're right. They are a very aggressive team. And I think the takeaway there is never stop trying to improve. That never stop trying to dig up a Gustav Forsling, a Carter Verhaeghe. Never stop giving those guys opportunities. Keep cycling through the bottom of your lineup to find better players. Don't be satisfied. You have Jonathan Huberdeau. Jonathan Huberdeau is a great player. Scores a lot of points. He's real good for you. You have the opportunity to get a better player. You don't say, well, we drafted Hubie and we know him and he's a great guy. You say, you know what? Sorry, Jonathan. We love you. You've been great for us, but Matthew Tkachuk's better. Sorry. Goodbye. You got to be a little bit heartless to build the kind of team that Florida has. And I think that's a good takeaway.
And it's just in terms of what Florida has done over the last few years, I find so interesting. This is the first time in Stanley Cup final history the top 4 guys of any draft are going to be playing in the final.
It's really cool.
And 3 of them are on Florida. Ekblad, number 1 in 2014. Reinhart goes to Buffalo at number 2. Florida acquired him for a 2022 first rounder. And Devin Levi. Draisaitl went 3 to Edmonton, and Sam Bennett went number 4. Florida acquired him for a 2022
but I think
second-round pick.
I think Reinhart and Bennett are probably the 2 best examples of this, take big swings and bet on talent. Reinhart was real good in Buffalo. Yeah. Now he's better now because he's not in a fucking dumpster fire of a team like Buffalo, but he was a really good player there. I remember that summer, I wanted the Flyers to trade for Reinhart instead of Ristolainen. It was why not just take the package that you were offering for Risto and offer it for Reinhart, who's actually good? Instead, they trade for Ristolainen, and we all saw what happened. But Reinhart was a guy where it's okay, he's available, and you have a chance to get him. And look, it's not like they didn't give up things for him. They gave him a first-round pick. Yeah. But it didn't set them back. We're not talking about 3 firsts. They had the chance to get a guy who was already very good and had the potential to be star-level good, and they got him. Bennett is even more interesting because he was a legitimate buy low. This was a guy who was not playing that well in Calgary. And the people I talked to around the league, like, they were skeptical of that trade. It was like, I don't think there's much more there in Sam Bennett, that, he's just not the guy we thought he was going into that draft. Now, sure looks like he's the guy we thought he was, except maybe what he needed was to be in a place where he didn't have to be the guy, where he could be the Konechny. He could be what we would love Konechny to be on a great team. He can just be the really good second tier, not the guy that all of our franchise hopes and dreams are being pinned upon.
Does it strike you how similar Sam Bennett looks to Claude Giroux? Just off topic.
Oh, just like look-wise?
They look oddly similar. Like, if Claude Giroux was a Dick Tracy villain, he would be Sam Bennett. Like, he got hit in the head with something. Like, that's what he does. I don't know. It's wild to me.
But no, Florida has been very opportunistic in terms of jumping on instances where really talented guys become available. And look, if Danny and the Flyers are going to continue to hold to this, we are not going to bottom out to get top picks, they are going to need to jump on opportunities like, Sam Reiner being available, Sam Bennett being available. They're going to have to, because that's how you make up for the fact that you don't have top 5 picks. Again, I'm not saying that having top 5 picks doesn't help. It does. Me and you both are on record as saying that, we would rather them be trying to bottom out rather than having John Tortorella keep this team 10 picks above where they probably would be otherwise. But you can build a team another way. And it's funny. I'm actually going to read this tweet that I got today, because let me find it real quick, because it very much spoke to something I said last week. And I don't know if this person watches our show or if this was completely independent and this is just something they thought of on their own. But I was having this conversation about the merits of tanking. And this was the answer. It was is it possible to get great talent without drafting high? Yes. But it requires a combination of luck and skill the Flyers have given us no reason to suggest they have. It requires a lot less skill at the top of the draft. And I do think, this is something I said last week, I do think that is what is driving a lot of the online Flyers fan belief that tanking is the only way to go. I think if you hooked most of them up to a lie detector, they would acknowledge that, yes, there are other ways to build a contender. They have just lost faith that the Flyers can do that because they think the Flyers are uniquely incompetent and will never not be incompetent. And their view is that if they think the Flyers are just incompetent and always will be, they're like, well, at least with tanking, they could actually luck into overcoming their own incompetence. I am not ready to say that this new organization is incompetent. They might be. I'm not just ready to say it. I'm just not ready to say it yet. And that's where I'm different from the hardcore tankers in the fan base.
And it is the one thing we've never tried. And a lot of people just want different for different sake, because if you're about our age, it's been a lot of the same.
Yeah.
And it's trending down, you know?
Well, I mean, now it's trending up.
Now it's trending. I just mean from where we were 10 years ago, it's gotten even worse. And it's the one thing we've never tried.
Yeah, they might be up a little bit, but they're still down from where they were in 2009.
Yeah.
We all silly like the mayor.